Halloween is upon us once again. This time I will be talking about creepy levels. These are some of the most morbid and unsettling levels I've experienced in a video game. No doubt about it. Now, if you're going to laugh at me for my choices, just try to understand my points. We all have different things that set us off. And also, this goes without saying, there are some notorious levels that won't be on here, especially considering how I haven't played any horror games. Now, try to keep your cool throughout this video, for these are what I think are the creepiest video game levels I've played. Whenever you hear the words creepy and earthbound in the same sentence, Gigas is the first thing you think of. So naturally, you're probably expecting the Cave of the Past to be on here. Well, that level does have an unnerving tune, and the boss is definitely disturbing. But if we're talking about levels that are scary all the way through, Moonside is what I feel is the most deserving of the spot. It starts the second time you are required to enter Jackie's Cafe, where you hear an incredibly trippy version of the Star-Spangled Banner. And then you go to this wall and examine it, and you will find yourself in Moonside, an alternate version of Foresight, except it looks kinda trippy now, though admittedly kind of awesome with the neons. Reality also starts to get much stranger as you fight rather interesting choices of enemies. The level is mostly black, it has a very confusing layout that makes it easy to get lost, some NPC's dialogue is disorienting, and you can't leave until you beat the boss. So if you're underleveled, prepare to be stuck in this weird dimension for a while. Everyone has a worst fear. Some people freak out at the sight of spiders, some people are afraid of the dark. But my worst fear is global warming, which is a rational fear because of how much harm it does to our planet. So good thing Sonic Mania has a level to show us a great example of this. But wait, if global warming's my worst fear, why is this entry only at the number 9 entry on the list? Well, there is a reason for that, because the music doesn't really sound all that apocalyptic. But nevertheless, seeing air pollution and global warming everywhere is just horrifying to see in a game like Sonic, especially since this is a nostalgic retake on a classic stage. Certain oil pools are also very flammable, which adds to the theme of this level, and the smoke gets much thicker if you go too long without pulling chain switches. If I had grown up with Sonic, this level probably would have scarred my childhood. The image of a classic level having its climate literally be ruined is very likely to make your children cry. And this planet is where that all comes from. Once you get here, you'll see several enemies that look deformed, and one part of the level makes you have to kill a Leviathan child, which I should mention is an unborn baby. That's right, we're killing an unborn Leviathan infant. And we're doing this by ripping off the skin of the organ that contains it. What was this game rated again? Oh, well, it's still a Nintendo game. Lastly, the planet has a very unnerving atmosphere, especially since if you aren't fast enough, you will end up being corrupted. The final battle is where it hits most of all, because the fear of corruption gets greater and greater, especially since you can't slow it down in the last phase. So you'll be fighting for your dear life, praying that you don't run out of time. Not even Metroid Fusion could get this intense. Hades' belly needs to be talked about more in scary video game moments lists. I mean, the fact that you're getting eaten alive is already an uncomfortable thought, but here you're getting eaten by a humanoid god. What makes this worse is that the scenery looks unbelievably bleak, the enemies are morbidly deformed, and need I mention the music? Just listen! What the heck is this? Is this even music? Not to mention, throughout the level you witness Pit go insane and start to talk to himself, which is definitely funny, but also kind of unnerving at the same time. But the worst part of this level is the fact that Hades eats souls, and once he eats them, they are erased from existence. That means they can't move on to the afterlife, they are gone. And this being the last thing they ever see? Ugh, I don't want to think about that. It's as if Hades saw my old Kingdom Hearts Recoded rant and said, wow, this meta guy must really hate being eaten. Maybe I should have a level take place inside me. That'll really make him cringe. And 4 months later, this is what we got. Hades, you ought to be proud of yourself. Not only are you a great villain and a great troll, but you also managed to legitimately creep me out. The Ancient Cistern is probably one of the most remembered dungeons in Skyward Sword, and when you experience this level for yourself, you'll probably see why. This level starts out as a nice paradise-looking area, nothing frightening, aside from these giant hands that try to grab you if you try to take their rupees, but other than that, the level isn't too harmless. But once you get to the halfway point, you'd better be ready to experience the true terrors of this nightmare. Like, what am I even looking at right now? The basement of this place is basically this game's equivalent of hell, complete with a freaky shade of purple, morbidly deformed and zombified bokoblins, unsettling music, hideous statues, poisonous water that's based on a lake of blood, and even an instance of you climbing a thread, but then several cursed bokoblins will climb after you, attempting to drag you back into this monstrosity. Some even cling on to you. Technically, that's only half of the Ancient Cistern, but in a way that actually makes this even worse. If you're a kid when you first play this game, you'll probably be traumatized by this level's shocking contrast. Don't let Okami's bright and colorful art style deceive you, because this game is a dark game. There are several instances that really help show how dark and scary this game tends to be at times, but the worst part, Cursed Sei-an City. Cursed areas in Okami are already good nightmare fuel to begin with, because they look super bleak, and the darkness can kill you. So what happens if the game shrinks you during it? In this area, you are shrunk down to the size of an ant, making everything tower above you. There's something that I really don't like about normal-sized people mistaking you for a bug and trying to kill you. There's also a blood-curdling green mist throughout this area, and you are trying to find its source. But then it gets even worse, as you eventually find out that the source of all this fog is coming from inside the Emperor from a creature named Blight. Great! Now we have to go inside a human stomach which is filled with smog! No thank you, but we have to if we want to beat the game, so yeah. If you don't think that Cursed Sei-an City is a horrifying place, then I envy your courage. On its own, Shiverstar Factory isn't so bad if you don't think about it, aside from some evil-looking machines, as well as some animals and test tubes. While Shiverstar does look like a post-apocalyptic Earth that's been frozen over, and the robots might be doing research on the animals that once lived here, so this could be this universe's version of Earth. Remember what I said earlier about my worst fear being global warming? Well, this is the main reason why I hate it. Because this is what it could potentially lead to. I get that this is a completely different universe than the real world, but I don't think that people want to think of Earth being ruined. But what else causes this level to earn a spot on here is the fact that this marks a great turning point in the game. Up to this point, the levels were charming, colorful, and felt a lot like something from a Kirby game, but in this level, you're going to have to say goodbye to that. Because from this point on, all that is about to change. The music greatly exemplifies this. At first it sounds a little bit intimidating, but once the choir kicks in, it becomes much more terrifying, and the rest of the song instantly becomes one of the hardest songs in the series to listen to. Once again, the level isn't that bad if you don't think about Shiverstar's design or turning point, but when you do, your perspective on this level will probably change. Forever. The Keyblade Graveyard from Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep just freaks me out. Even though you spend most of your time here fighting semi-final bosses, let's look at this terrible place by itself. It's only a few rooms, but this was the setting for the Great Keyblade War, where thousands of people lost their lives. The atmosphere of this area feels foreboding, and in the Twister Trench, there are a bunch of tornadoes, and once you get close to one, it starts following you, and you literally can't outrun them. They don't kill you, they merely just lead you into a battle, but even during the battles, the creepy music of the Keyblade Graveyard doesn't stop. When a song is this much of a mixture between depressing and unsettling, this becomes one of the most traumatizing songs I've ever heard in a video game. I hate this song so much! This level also leads to all three of our main characters suffering from a miserable fate. Ven is put into a seemingly eternal sleep, Terra gets possessed by Xehanort for what could possibly be forever, which leads to Aqua being trapped in the realm of darkness, and when we finally find her, it's going to be too late. Please tell me we won't have to kill her in Kingdom Hearts 3. But the worst part is that this is the last level in a game full of beautiful and colorful Disney worlds, 4 of which are from the era where Walt Disney was still alive. this level feels like not only the graveyard for Keyblades, but also the destruction of my childhood. Especially since between the events of Birth by Sleep and the first Kingdom Hearts, most of the colorful worlds you went to in the game are destroyed. If you're going to ask why the last world in the original Kingdom Hearts isn't on here despite actually being the ruins of worlds, at least that world didn't have a horrific song playing, and the worlds are restored after you beat it, unlike in this level here, where you beat it before they are destroyed. When Xehanort said to finish this at the fated place, I hope he doesn't mean the Keyblade Graveyard, because I do not feel like coming back here to end off Kingdom Hearts 3, especially now that Frozen's finally been announced. But at least we can just mute the game and pull up another song. There. I feel so much better now. Way forward, I want to have a talk with you. I understand that Shantae and the Pirate's Curse is rated T. But what is the meaning of this? Mudbog Island doesn't sound like a terrifying name for a level until you find out about the secrets of this island. Namely, the oubliette, however the heck you pronounce it, of suffering. This is a level like no other, at least in games I've played. This level is literally the Shantae equivalent of hell. I'm not even looking too deep into this. The game literally implies it. It has the word suffering in it, lies in the village of lost souls, which they even say is where dead souls move on, and the level itself has a very uncomfortable shade of blood red. Don't they know that too much red can be hard on the eyes? And what is with those statues? Not only are they freaky to look at, but why are they partially buried? What is this, Planet of the Apes? I've seen a couple of incarnations of hell in video games I've played, but unlike those ones, this is actually as intimidating as you'd expect it to be, if not even worse. But it does kind of lose points because during the boss fight, the atmosphere isn't as scary, and it just feels like a normal lava level. But even bearing all that in mind, if this level wasn't followed up by the gorgeous Frostbite Island, it probably would have taken months for me to let this go. Here we go! A Hat in Time has a good chunk of memorable moments that are good enough to be memes, and probably would have been if it wasn't overshadowed by Super Mario Odyssey. One of these memorable moments from the game is when you deal with the hair-raising atmosphere of Queen Vanessa's manure. You'd think that it would be your everyday haunted house level like Big Boo's Haunt, but once you choose this mission, okay, I don't like this loading screen. So after you make it through this root beer cellar, you do find great nightmare material in this forsaken house. You get a frightening message from the Queen herself. And you have to make your way through these rooms, but if you make a noise, be it intended or accidental, Queen Vanessa will hear you and enter the room. And you'd better hide from her, because this happens. As someone who hasn't played any real horror games, you can definitely see how I would have reacted to this. Would you ever have expected something like this in the platformer this cute? Okay, granted, every chapter in the game seems to have at least one part in it that may frighten you, but this is easily the worst of them all. It does the horror aspect really well with just how it plays out. Queen Vanessa's design is also wrong on so many levels. I can handle red eyes, but when she's a shadow with piercing red eyes, in the dark no less, and the eyes are usually the only thing you see of her, that actually reminds me of something I saw in one of my nightmares. Even Hat Kid, who usually just has a smile on her face, has a worried facial expression throughout this mansion. As much as I love A Hat in Time, if you decide to skip out on it because of this level, then I can't really blame you. Unless you know about the shortcut that lets you skip the mansion part entirely. I guess if there's any problem with this level, then in the final room I was expecting one last haunt, but instead it just sorta ends, making it feel cut short. But either way you look at it, this is arguably the creepiest video game level I've ever been to.